This ship embodies physically the instrument that built New York. I'm just very glad that this site was dug up properly.
Inside the ship, we're finding all kinds of debris that was placed here when the ship was placed here. The debris inside the ship helps us place exactly the date, or somewhere near the date when the ship was put here.
The ship was actually found more than a month ago, but it was kept secret until this week to keep the crowds away. But you can see it tomorrow between 1 and 5.
I think everyone wants to save a little piece of history, and so we've made arrangements now to take apart the bow. And that way we will have the entire bow, and it can be conserved and then reconstructed and put in a museum, and so that people can come and look at it.
Being part of the conservation of these artifacts is very rewarding because we are continuing a process that was started about 40 years ago. Many people have worked on this collection before, and so it's just really great to have the opportunity to continue their work and then to further contribute to sharing the story of Princess Carolina and everything around it.
There's definitely an appreciation of how unique the ship would have been at the time, which really helped us identify it as Princess Carolina later down the line, is that there's still fingerprints on it as to who made it and how it was made and what it did.
This summer's project was many years in the making, but having Jules and Ariel with us, we're able to do a whole lot. We have worked on almost 400 timbers at this point, so it's been phenomenal having them. So what we've done this summer in terms of conservation is more of a preventive action. So the process was to document, like any conservation process is going to start with documentation. So we took photos before cleaning, that was the second step, cleaning the timbers. And we also took that opportunity to inventory or re-inventory everything because it had not been done in a long time. The cleaning was mechanical, so no chemical cleaning at this stage. You know, it's small tools, bamboo sticks, dental tools, vacuum cleaners. If anything in this process, we have removed some excess polyethylene glycol that was at the surface of the timber. Because over years, sometimes it can ooze out a little bit. In the treatment of organic materials that have been waterlogged, meaning have been wet and underwater for a long time, we need to use a consolidant before drying them, otherwise they're going to crumble. And one of the most commonly used consolidant until today in the field is polyethylene glycol, PEG. So these timbers, even though they were treated in the early 80s, they were already treated with polyethylene glycol, which is still the product that we use today.
I'm definitely enjoying moving some of the larger timbers, I would say, because it's a little bit more of an extensive project. And though they take up a lot of the time, it's a lot of just like the more recognizable pieces of the ship, but also I think moving the capstan in particular, it's exciting to think that some pieces could be put back together.
So once we've got all of the pallets or all of the dollies filled up, we do a freezer load. So we'll bring the trailer down, we'll load up as much into the back of the truck or the trailer as we can, and then we take it to the freezer.
Before bringing the timbers in a better environment, we needed to make sure that none of the potential pests was going to come with the collection in a pest-free environment. After cleaning, we proceeded to bring all the timbers in a freezer and freeze them for 5 to 7 days at -30 Celsius, which is -22 Fahrenheit.
And 5-7 days up, we then move them into this room where they're currently located. And we let them defrost and then we reorganize them onto the shelves.
The idea for us to display these objects is that we would like eventually to reconstruct the bow of the ship, just to have a better visual for the public. Like, this is nice, they're stable now on these shelves. They're going to be neutralized and treated properly. Eventually, it would be even nicer if we could see a ship and not just timbers on the floor. So there's a lot to tell, and I think it will be a great asset for the museum in general. I definitely have a soft spot for sailboats, for wooden ships in general. Also working with organic materials. You're working with something that has lived, like with living materials. I do love the fact that something was only at the time powered by wind. There was no engine, there was nothing. It was just the wind, and you have to make it through. This ship was crossing the ocean for the 12 years of activity that it had, back and forth, starting in South Carolina, going to London, and then eventually it actually came here in Hampton Roads, in Yorktown, and then to Spain, to Portugal.
I didn't know much about maritime history either from either the Canadian side or the United States side. So it's far more extensive than I ever thought I would get while I was here in terms of learning the history of shipbuilding and how important merchant ships were. There's more of them than there would have been warships or any other types of ships. So having a 300-year-old merchant ship is fun. It's kind of fun. It's fun to find something special about something that was so common back then. And I feel a lot closer with just how the water connects everything, and not only with commercially through the United States on the East Coast, but also with being back home up north.
Thinking about the history and like reading so much about the history of Princess Carolina has also kind of like piqued my interest in underwater archaeology and maritime studies. I mean, there's just so much that we can learn. There's been a couple of timbers that we've come across that have this really interesting pattern of like slightly overlapping circles. I've been trying to do a lot of research about, like, maybe it's like some part of shipbuilding techniques that, you know, like we just don't use anymore. It's such a distinctly human thing, but also just all of the little kind of other things like tide lines and the markings that like really remind you that like people were here, people were on this.
The team that has excavated the timbers and worked many years to try and identify the ship, yeah, absolutely, I feel a connection to them simply for their love for, you know, old shipwrecks and the amount of research and determination it takes to continue and take on a project like this. I very much admire this, and very grateful I can continue a little bit of their work.
I have like been very excited and very grateful to be able to be a part of the conservation process for Princess Carolina. Something that like really solidified the like emotional salience of this project was getting to learn more about the stories of the people that have been connected with this project. Has just like it's completely transformed the way that I have like approached the material and approached learning about it and approached talking about it.
Like, what was it, 3 weeks in the dead of winter in New York on near Wall Street, digging up a ship, and they only had 3 weeks to do it on like a tight budget. What they did get out of it was what amazes me. Is I worked 3 years as an archaeologist. 3 weeks to excavate as much as the ship that they did. I'm thoroughly impressed.
I mean, if we're talking about connecting people through the water, I think this ship is actually almost the best example that we could have in this regard. It was connecting people through the water in the 18th century, which on its own it's a great story. What were they transporting? Who were the crew on board? There was no GPS. I mean, incredible. And these guys were crossing the ocean in 2-3 months with a cargo and back. And then it was a crazy life when you think about it. If we don't preserve this collection, you're not able to share what people before us have been achieving, have been doing. We're constantly learning from the past. These timbers are part of an archaeological site. It is now, as a museum, as conservators, it's our duty to make sure that these timbers can be seen and documented by future generations and studied further. There's still a lot to discover about the site.